Some 3 million Afghans live in Iran, under 1 million of them legally. Most risk their money and lives in crossing a dangerous border zone illegally. The worst that is likely to happen on the Iranian side is for them to be crossed back into Afghanistan. This beggars the question, why would they be running at the risk of everything from a country with a US coalition force looking to cease fire and make peace with the Taliban? It's back to school, so I've got to observe the rules. Do excuse the mask. I'm here in a school off Tehran with 40% Afghan students, and why I'm here is that there's potential trouble brewing between Iran and Afghanistan the way the news is going, international news is going. So I've come to see if there's been any reflection on the Afghan-Iranian population in these sorts of areas, which has a lot of both. Stay with me, Leila Faramarzi, on Iran Today for more. Boys and girls alike, they were worth the long sunny drive from West Tehran eastwards and north. It took us well over an hour just to get to the tip of Damavand, to then make another smaller trip from there to the schools. I asked why Afghans were running from the prospect of peace in Afghanistan. In answer, after 20 years of war brought to them by the US, the word peace from American lips must sound like none other than more war.
We
could not continue our school because of war, poverty, and financial conditions.
Afghanistan's currency has of late surpassed the Iranian rial and is about 5,500 times stronger. It's over 5,450 rials to the Afghani.
Sure, I would like to return to Afghanistan. Our economic conditions have improved a bit and we can do farming.
And yet it was only on June the 3rd that a vehicle went off the rail and up in flame, in rushing desperate illegal entrants to their destinations in Iran. An incident blamed on Iranian brutality, as the American-inspired narrative would put it. Perhaps the whole of Afghanistan should be given a psych test for wanting to rush into the lap of Iranian brutality. I got to talk to the 6th grade teacher at Dast Gheb Girls' School.
I
don't make any distinction between our Afghan and Iranian children. I tell them at the beginning that the Afghan and Iranian children should have no problem with one another in the classroom. I always create an environment where these children would be as friendly to Iranians as to Afghans. We haven't seen any maltreatment or violence so far. There might be some minor issues, but we have experienced nothing so far. Our neighbors are very kind and they show no discrimination against us. Security is higher here. In Afghanistan, bombs are dropped regularly. We feel safer here.
It was pleasantly surprising to hear almost nothing negative from the kids. I did ask why we were given such young kids to talk to, and I was told, if you want the truth, ask a child. Funnily, the kids were also articulate on the matter of the car incident. Atefe was terribly upset by the news.
Some media portion be blamed, but we are not sure. I feel sad because sometimes there might be some attempts to cause rift amongst us and Afghans, but that does not occur.
The boys I talked to were 5th graders at Mirza Kuchek School, which is also in the Damavand catchment area of Tehran city. They compared Iranian and Afghan cultures.
First, there are many similarities between Iran and Afghanistan. In ancient time, they were a single country. For instance, Iranians and Afghans both speak Farsi. We share many other features. We are all Muslim. We are next-door neighbor as we share borders. However, some governments have come from farther areas and occupied our country, and our countrymen have come to Iran waiting for the situation there to become stable.
Moradi, who just spoke, is Iranian, as is the next student who tells of how he feels towards his non-Iranian classmates.
I have my friends among Afghan children. There is no difference between my Iranian and Afghan friends.
On football pitch, 3 of our 5 captains are Afghan. We never say that an Afghan should not be our captain. For us, there is no difference. We play like ordinary children.
It's understandable looking at the teacher.
I never ask them who is migrant, who is Iranian. All our activities, including entertainment and training, I make no distinction between Iranian and Afghan school children.
As for the principal, Mr. Bahrami.
Iranian people are currently living with Afghans. For example, the gardeners here have Afghan workers. The fathers of Afghan school children here work with Iranians out there. There are labor contracts between them. Their fathers are working together and school children are classmates.
Between 6.5% to 8% of Afghanistan's 37 million strong population is in Iran. That's both legal and illegal immigrants, both of which are enjoying facilities no less than Iranians. Just counting the million legals, Iran is the 8th largest hosting country for displaced people, but perhaps the first in going beyond international protocol intending to what it sees as its guest population, which it has hosted for 40 years. Mr. Friesen is UNHCR Iran rep. I'd say it's important to hear him out.
Well, Iran should definitely be marked in the higher category, somewhere ranging between 8 and 10. But I don't want to just give a simple figure. That would be a bit too easy. It's important to, first of all, recall and not forget that Iran has been one of those key examples, member states that has taken its responsibility many years ago already, starting 40 years ago, in terms of receiving people fleeing from misery elsewhere, primarily Afghans and of course Iraqis in larger numbers in the previous phase. So hosting so many refugees, close to 1 million at present for such a long period of time, is not what we see necessarily in a lot of other member states. So Iran has a lot to be proud of, should be seen as an example, and should be recognized and supported accordingly.
Refugees at large live side by side the Iranian population rather than camps, and even undocumented children, that's children of illegal immigrants, are admitted to public schools for no additional fee.
Regarding the registration process, Iranians sign up by producing their own and their parents' ID cards. For Afghans, the process is even simpler, as they are not required to produce their parents' papers. Only children should present a document like a passport or education support paper. There are some children with no passport or ID cards here. Therefore, their parents look for education support papers for their children everywhere. Such papers are often issued at governor's office.
Mr. Mahmoudi is chief of the Iranian Interior Ministry's Aliens Bureau. He has plenty to add.
For more than 40 years, we have been providing services to refugees in various sectors, the 5 sectors of livelihood, employment and vocational training, education, health, as well as relief aid under special conditions like flooding, natural disasters and earthquake. We have been providing valuable aid to them in cooperation with the UN High Commissioner for Refugees delegation to Iran. More than 550,000 foreign school children were studying in Iran last school year. Some of them were eligible to go to school, but they lacked permit. However, following the leader's instruction, they were registered. They numbered 138,000. We issued education support papers for them.
We are a refugee agency, so when we talk to governments in general, but also here and in Afghanistan, we have a distinct humanitarian focus relating to people who seek asylum, wish to seek asylum, if that is possible, or who have refugee status already, and other protection-related concerns in relation to people on the move. And what we think is important in general, but also in this situation, is that member states talk. We support member states in these discussions if they wish to be supported with advice, with facilitation. We have actually existing fora for this, so as to ensure that the best possible mutual solutions can be found on issues that often do not have just one solution in one country. They are by nature transboundary, cross-border.
Health is no less important than education. And Iran is granting access to universal public health insurance to Amayesh card holders. Amayesh cards being renewable registration cards. Some 1 million Afghans are holders of these Amayesh cards, and 450,000 of them are valid visa holders. That leaves 1.5 to 2 million as undocumented. Mr. Mousavi is the Foreign Ministry spokesman. An articulate media man of the world of diplomacy, I had to make the trek down to the ministry to get a statement or two from him. Would you say Iran-Afghan relations are brotherly enough to endure all plots?
The Islamic Republic of Iran has been among the first nations favoring a stable Afghanistan. Iran has been assisting with the formation of a national unity government in Afghanistan. Iran has sought to win regional cooperation for rapprochement among Afghan groups so that there would be a truce between them and inter-Afghan dialogue would take shape so that a long-term and comprehensive solution would be found for the country to get out of the current conditions. Naturally, if a broad-based, powerful central government takes shape, the situation will become politically stable and we will also witness economic prosperity, in which conditions terrorist and extremist groups will be pushed back in Afghanistan.
Afghanistan is at war. Whoever and whatever might have started the fire, that is the present reality of Iran's eastern neighbor. The US is certainly not an innocent in the decades-long plight befallen Afghanistan. If the US is today fighting the Taliban, it was the US that created the Taliban to begin with, as a front to the Soviet Union all those years back. The Taliban started out as militia in 1994 and are today called an insurgency. But like I said, fingers are being pointed at Iran at a time when the US, Israel and Saudi Arabia are running an anti-Iran front to extend the UN arms embargo on this country. Incidents being pinned and blamed on Iran are a matter of drowning and crashing involving illegal entrance to this country. Do tell of border control strategy, because it's more than a simple border guard can handle.
One of our main demands from Afghanistan is to keep a table on the border. We are exercising necessary controls on our own part of the border. We expect them not to allow illegal crossing into our country. Our border guards are obliged to stop any illegal entry. All of them are not ordinary migrants looking for work here. Drug traffickers and human traffickers may be among them. Even terrorist operatives may be taking advantage of the situation to sneak into our territory. Our police and security forces will have to deal with them accordingly. We call on the Afghan government to step up border controls, and we want Afghan nationals to go through legal ways to enter into the Islamic Republic of Iran.
Time for a short break. We'll be back in no time. It is because of the battle with terrorists and insurgents that Afghan forces are preoccupied and have left their border watchpoints vacant, even ones funded by Iran. Those border stations can no longer be safe to enter even, as they're at the disposal of terrorists, drug dealers and people traffickers.
When
we speak about border control, it would be a two-sided procedure. Both Iranian and Afghan border guards are required to make sure there would be no loophole for trafficking gangs involved in smuggling Afghan nations into Iran. Our own border guards are required by international protocols on demarcation to prevent any illegal entry.
I will next be describing the incidents described by hostile media as Iranian brutality by American spin, and the Afghan reaction to them. But first, let's take a quick break to see what other media outlets have to say. For that, I give you Shahrzad.
Hi, my name is Shahrzad Manucheri, and this is the news section of Iran Today. We'll be looking online for the latest update on Iran-Afghanistan ties, the issues of immigrants, refugees, and border crossers. Mehr News Agency reports that no foreign provocation can undermine Iran-Afghanistan close relation, as said by the Iranian Foreign Ministry. Iranian Ministry of Foreign Affairs in its Twitter account wrote that no ill-intended foreign provocation can undermine Iran-Afghanistan close relations. In reaction to the remarks of Assistant Secretary for Democracy, Human Rights, and Labor, Robert A. Destro, Iran's Foreign Ministry, wrote, "Look who's talking about the rights of refugees, a government whose campaign motto was to build a wall and has been repeatedly condemned for its cruel border policies. For example, separating migrant children from their parents, is lecturing the world about World Refugee Day." Referring to the long-standing relations between Iran and Afghanistan, it added, "Iran and Afghanistan, as two brotherly nations, have strong, deep-rooted relations that is based on common historical and cultural bonds, and no ill-intended foreign provocation can undermine this close relation." ABC News reports on Iran implementing law allowing women to pass their nationality to their children. The former laws of the Islamic Republic only allowed men to pass nationality, so children of foreign national fathers and Iranian women were not considered Iranian. But with the new law, which will go in effect in 2 weeks, women will confer their nationality to their children like men, the spokesman of the government, Ali Rabi'i, said. Most of the men with foreign nationalities who marry Iranian women are refugees from Iran's neighboring countries like Afghanistan and Iraq. Fatima Ashrafi, head of HAMI, an association for the protection of refugee women and children, told ABC News. More than 100,000 Iranian women are married to foreign men, mostly from neighboring countries, Ashrafi said. Tolo News uncovers how nearly 340,000 Afghans repatriated from Iran since January. Numbers from the International Organization for Migration, IOM, indicate that nearly 340,000 Afghan nationals who were lacking legal documents have repatriated from the Islamic Republic of Iran since the start of the current year. According to the border monitoring team of the Directorate of Refugees and Repatriation, a total of 11,708 Afghans returned from Iran through the Nimruz and Herat borders between 14th to 20th of June 2020, a 23% decrease from the previous week, which stood at 15,215. 3,290 persons returned voluntarily and 8,418 were deported. Since January 1st, 2020, the total number of undocumented returnees from Iran is 339,742 individuals. That's all for this segment. We'll see you next week.
The incidents were as such. The first was on May the 1st, when a group of 54 Afghan migrants allegedly sought to enter Iran, but were thrown into Harirud on the border between Iran and Afghanistan. Reuters, among others, quoted that Iranian border guards killed the migrants by forcing them into the river at gunpoint. 18 were reportedly drowned, one of them a 12-year-old boy. Hostile or unwitting media outlets at large reported the 54 Afghan migrants trying to get into Iran were thrown into the Hari River on the border between Iran and Afghanistan. Now, never mind Iran's immigration track record, which is in fact glittering, although the international community has done the least it can in lifting the burden off this boycotted country. Never mind that, but it cannot have been physically possible for the Iranian border guards to have done so. Spokesman Mousavi said at the time, "The confirmed reports received from Iranian border guards show that such an incident has not occurred on the mentioned date and location. Besides, due to weather conditions in the region, not a single Afghan citizen entered the Iranian territory on said date."
Some trafficking gangs looking for their own interests carry immigrants as far as the border and leave them there and tell them to cross Harir-Vud River. Due to heavy rainfall, the river was deep and those who could swim had saved themselves, but those who could not swim drowned. We felt so sorry for this humanitarian tragedy. There were more than 50 illegal immigrants, some of whom drowned. The Foreign Ministry, police and other organizations probed the incident, and all allegations hyped up on some media were disclaimed. Some enemies sought in vain to harm deep ties between the nations of Iran and Afghanistan.
The Islamic Republic of Iran is among few countries with many neighbors. We share a border with 50 nations, and we would like our shared borders to be safe and peaceful. Naturally, some are illegally seeking to sneak through our borders, not only our eastern borders. We may have similar problems at our western borders too. We attach great importance to the security of our country, people and borders.
Next incident, the 3rd June car fire on the road from the Iranian central city of Yazd. It went as such. The car was transporting illegal Afghan refugees or entrants to other cities. When the police became suspicious and the driver refused to stop, the police shot at one of the back tires of the car, which caught fire after skidding on the asphalt for some 8 kilometers due to its high speed. It had caught fire when it finally hit the center guardrail. This led to death and destruction. And while magnified foreign media accounts may have poisoned the minds of Afghan officials for a time, those officials soon concluded that the fault lay with the driver and traffickers. However, irresponsible reporting led to irreversible damage, and border incidents blown out of proportion and reported without proof led to an attack on the Iranian embassy in Kabul. A week after Afghan ambassador Lival was summoned by the Iranian Foreign Ministry, the Afghan caretaker foreign minister Atmar visited Tehran. He was heading a delegation of chiefs of different Afghan political groups. The delegation was in Iranian capital city Tehran on the 21st and 22nd of June 2020. Iran and Afghanistan are now to form a joint border committee. This ensued from talks in May, however, and Baharvand announced it on June the 7th. He is Iranian Deputy Interior Minister for Legal Affairs. What's not understandable is that incident is being pinned on Iran as premeditated plot down to Iranian brutality. And what's even less understandable is that it's being narrated as such by the likes of American officials, whose presidential campaign's founding bloc was the building of a wall to ward off Mexican immigrants. Iranian President Rouhani gave his Afghan counterpart Ghani reassurance in a telephone conversation. He said, "We consider growing stability and security in Afghanistan to be in line with the promotion of our own stability and security, and believe that differences between the groups would be resolved through negotiations and within the framework of principles, and we always stand by the Afghan government and nation in this path." Finally, pointing to Iran's success in tackling the novel coronavirus pandemic, Rouhani said Iran will continue to provide Afghan migrants with free medical services and treatment.
As soon as the coronavirus struck, we sent text messages to all foreign nationals whose names are registered in our systems. We regularly announced necessary healthcare points to them. With the cooperation of international organizations, we provided 6,000 households living in 20 cities hosting foreign immigrants with necessary materials including masks, gloves, personal protective equipment and hand sanitizers. We also distributed debit cards amongst those living in guest cities.
That's it for today. Thanks for watching, but don't forget to watch at the same times next week and each week after, as you never know what's going to be on. And do leave your comments and topic requests. For now, from me at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, goodbye.